Comedy podcast. I'm Lauren Tocci.
And I'm Ryan Tocci. I'm here to remind everyone, nobody knocks off an old man in my neighborhood and gets away with it.
I'm sure our new neighbors are really comforted by your life philosophies.
That's what I'm here for.
So Ryan, I gotta ask, how was your weekend?
Oh, my weekend was awesome, Lauren. It was one head spin away from being Reagan and The Exorcist.
Podcast audience, I can attest to that imagery.
Yeah, it was a little rough. Reason for us being late this week. I apologize. Lauren, you had an awesome Friday night. Congratulations to the Southern Lehigh Mini-Thon.
Aw, thank you.
Yes, they did a great job. $22,100 to pediatric cancer. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you. I'm really proud of the kids. It was a really fun event. We had this awesome band play. They're like a local band to the high schooler called the Basements, and they're so sweet. And they just did they had an awesome set, and they played at sunset. It was awesome.
That's very cool.
Really
very
fun
cool.
time.
I'm glad you guys got to have it. I know it's been a challenging year to have events, so that was great. So you were away. I had a bachelor type evening, which consisted of old WWE matches, video games, and food from a local establishment.
Honestly, next time, can you do me a favor? Can you just put on a man-tailored shirt and sing old rock and roll rather than what happened next?
Yes. Or, maybe a little, Saved by the Bell,
Yeah, ba 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 ba. That would have been great.
No, it would have been much better than me waking up hours later and turning into the pie scene from Stand By Me. So.
Oh my god. Oh, so accurate though. Because here's the thing, everyone. If you ever have said the phrase, I think I have a scooch of food poisoning, there's no such thing. It's either all or nothing. And let me tell you, the all portion of that is horrifying.
Yes. So Ryan has given up food forever. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, that is my apology to the podcast on why we were delayed this week. But we're back.
We are back.
I am at 75%.
Hey, you being at 75% is a far cry from where you were on Saturday morning. So I'm going to ask, in the midst of, obviously, your traumatic exorcist-like experience, do you have a Tossi's take for this week?
Well, yeah. We actually got to see a bunch of stuff this week, which was
Again, because you couldn't move.
Yes. So we actually saw a few new things this week, but the thing that I'm going to recommend is something that we saw about 10 minutes before we started recording and just dropped today, and that is the Dear Evan Hansen trailer. I know for myself, I am so incredibly excited. 2 hours, hopefully in a movie theater, just hearing Ben Platt in my ear and crying the whole time. I'm all in. I'm very excited. The trailer made me very happy and very excited. That's why I'm kind of jazzed about that coming out today.
Yeah, the trailer, here's the thing. If you know the music from it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the elephant in the room. Ben Platt's a little older to me.
The mid-20s in the room.
Yeah, to be playing
the classroom.
That character. So that's, that's going to bring its criticism. And there's always, certainly there's a lot of fraught feelings, both in the theater and the film community, about adaptations of musicals. We've got In the Heights coming and West Side Story, which seem very exciting. But, sometimes those marriages are not always as happy as they should be. But I'm excited to hear Ben Platt sing. I'm always going to be excited to hear Ben Platt sing. And for people to have access to this story, it was a hot ticket when it was on Broadway. It seemed to not have the same success once Ben Platt was not in that role. So I'm excited for people to get to see him in
I agree, and that's the thing. I agree with you. He aged out of the role, but I just think people need to see his performance of it.
Yes.
His nuance and how Evan Hansen was his character. I know he didn't write it, but it became him. And I think there's something, I'm sure this was probably intentional, but it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think there's probably a lot to the fact that was dropped today. And anybody that goes through anything, has ever heard the song You Will Be Found, you will know how profoundly and how poignant that song and how much it speaks to you. So I think it's perfect timing for the trailer. I'm so excited for September, and I really, although I agree with you, it's not going to be the same as a stage production. I'm happy that people get to see his performance of this.
100%, and I don't think that has to be a bad thing. Yeah. I think it can be distilled really well in a film, and the director who's doing it, the same director did Perks of Being a Wallflower and Wonder, so definitely has a pulse on how to tell youth stories with a lot of authenticity. Stephen Chbosky, who actually wrote The Perks of Being a Wallflower, if you're familiar with that text. So I'm with you. I'm excited.
And a great cast. Caitlin Dever, Amy Adams.
Amazing cast.
Terrific.
Yeah.
So what about you?
My Tossie's take is not as profound or as on point as I would say yours, or is going to have as much excitement, but we watched the TV series Love Life this weekend when you were in a fever dream of...
That's how you got me to sit down and actually watch a TV show.
Yeah, I did, because you're so incapacitated. But it's a 10-part series. It stars Anna Kendrick, and it's kind of the quest of someone trying to find their quote-unquote person in life, and... It reminds me a lot of 500 Days of Summer, and I've been really in the mood to watch 500 Days of Summer, so maybe that's why this hit for me. It's just kind of about the misadventures and, the roads that we take to get to that person. I really enjoyed it. I thought, romantic comedies I don't think are easy to distill in a television series because you have so much more time to introduce conflict that sometimes can muddy the waters of kind of the excitement and joy of a romantic comedy. But I feel like this somehow did it in 10 parts. I really liked it.
It was very good, very entertainment. It had me hooked. It gave me a more, again, appreciation for Anna Kendrick, which I needed a shot of. And I know how much you enjoyed it. I don't know if I completely agree with the comparison to 500 Days of Summer, but...
I think it's honestly just the narration. I think that's the thing.
I found it to be a more sophisticated Girls.
Oh, I did not expect you to say that because you loved Girls. And
I do love Girls.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say it was a better Girls. I said it was a more sophisticated Girls.
It's a more saccharine version of Girls.
Right.
Like, they're living in Brooklyn, but they're living in that unreal Brooklyn. Whereas in Girls, they're, like, legitimately in Brooklyn. Yeah. All right, this is fair.
Girls is the grimy, realistic. This is a little more,
Yeah, because Adam Driver's character alone on that show is
a little more shine.
Yeah.
Augie and sorry, why is Adam Driver's name escaping me?
Oh gosh, I can't go watch that show 1,000 times over.
Yeah.
Anyways, Augie and Adam Driver, very different characters. So go watch it though. I think it's really enjoyable. So with that, I think we need to explain to the podcast audience how we're settling this bet. And maybe you've already seen the title of the episode, but probably are like, whoa, big old question mark. How do we get from point, you guys didn't have a tiebreaker, which was irresponsible, to this is the film you watched this week?
A little recap for anybody that didn't catch our Oscar shows, and if you haven't, how could you not have listened to our Oscar shows? We have a bet every year on the Oscars. And the winner gets a prize. This year, our bet got to choose episode 9, which is today's episode. And, we tied, which, we did mention on our wrap-up show.
I still am in disbelief.
After that night, I was like, I can go back. I can figure this out. I went back. I could not figure out a way to break the tie. Because even I went with the big categories, or the so-called big categories. We had all the same.
Yeah.
Not that we had the same answers. We just got the same ones wrong with different answers. Like, it was kind of funny. Everything I did, there was no way. So as luck may have it, and kind of a nice spin here also with the Star Wars episode being our last episode. So we have a good friend, Danielle Andrews, producer of the podcast
Good Things Come in Threes, which is the podcast for Trinity Camp Hill Lutheran Church. 3 pastors talking about a variety of topics.
Yeah.
Really, really enjoyable. They're super funny and really engaging.
Yeah, really entertaining show. Highly recommend it. They actually did a great episode, Star Wars episode, a couple weeks ago, which they were able to, compare the stories of the Bible to Star Wars, and it was really, I found it completely engaging. I was hooked, and that's just for all the right reasons. So she's a producer of the show. She actually texted us. She listened to the show first thing the morning we dropped, texted us and said, "Oh, Ty, the only thing you can do is watch the Burbs." So when everything was all said and done, we had no other answer but the Burbs.
And honestly, it was a great answer because, Danielle, shooting her shot and just went, I'm throwing it out there, and probably had no sense that we were really going to take her up on this.
It was perfect timing.
Because we were both scrambling going, wait, what do we do? Because we didn't have, and listen. I
like that we talk about this as if this was the most dramatic thing ever. What will happen?
If anyone knows us, they know 100% it was that traumatic.
That's absolutely true.
That we were sitting here pacing like Woodward and Bernstein trying to figure out who Deep Throat is. Like, it... Yes, we 100% treated this like the fact that we didn't have like a cork board with like string and pins in it is really a miracle.
So thank you to Danielle, for giving us an out here, giving us the final answer. We have no winner to their contest, but we do have an episode 9, which we are very excited about. Also feels very fitting because summer's just around the corner. We're coming up on Memorial Day.
Yeah.
This is a very summer-type film, despite when it came out, which we'll get to. And also, we just moved into the Burbs.
Oh, wait, are we the Klopeks of our neighborhood, though?
Yeah, it could be. What happened to the naps?
Oh, no, we took out the naps. So, if you're not familiar, so this is Joe Dante, or directed by Joe Dante, starring Tom Hanks, 1989's The Burbs. And I feel like the only appropriate way to start talking about this movie is, Ryan Tocci, I want to talk about cul-de-sacs. You laugh. But here's the thing. Cul-de-sacs freak me out. I've been in plenty of neighborhoods with I'm sorry if you live in
the garbage man from the Burbs?
That is the realest moment in the movie. Everything else is fantasy except that garbage man saying about how weirdos live on cul-de-sacs. And I'm sorry if you're listening.
Thank you for alienating anybody that lives in a cul-de-sac now.
But here's the thing. What I really love about this, so you have this really, like, interesting, like, overhead shot of the neighborhood, and you're just seeing, like, kind of the labyrinth type roads. And I mean, we legitimately did move into a neighborhood very similar to this in the way in which it's all those, like, labyrinth turny roads. You really have to know the neighborhood to know how to get around. And it's like this great opening shot of just all the lights. And then you come down and you're in this cul-de-sac and you've got this, like, ominous music playing. It feels kind of like a horror movie in some ways. But it opens on a story about a cul-de-sac. And here's the thing. I find cul-de-sacs unnatural. And now, granted, of course they're unnatural. They're man-made. But there's just something weird. It's the suburban trap. And to me, it's the creepiness of when you make a cul-de-sac, it's like saying, the only people that should come past here are the people who are invited here. And that's what freaks me out about cul-de-sacs. Because if you get lost and you have to turn around in a cul-de-sac, everyone's like holding their hose on their lawn, looking at you like, what are you doing in a cul-de-sac? You clearly don't belong here. Cul-de-sacs.
And you don't want people holding their hose as they look at you. Sorry.
I am saying something very real and serious about cul-de-sacs, my dude. They freak me out. Cul-de-sacs really freak me out. Like, they're just... And then if you're the house at the end, I feel like you're the house that's controlling the simulation. Like, I don't know. Cul-de-sacs are weird to me, and I feel like this movie starts out as a solid horror movie for that fact alone, because it's just... It's the suburban trap that doesn't allow for outside people coming in.
I'm really happy after 14 years of marriage to know this about you.
You didn't know we were going to start with cul-de-sacs, did you?
I did not.
It's the first thing I wrote a whole paragraph in my notes about cul-de-sacs. I'm only scratching the surface here.
I'm glad our viewing audience got to hear listening audience got to hear a food poisoning story and a Lauren rant about cul-de-sacs for this show.
And honestly...
Before we even get to really the in-depth on the movie...
So, fine, we'll talk about the movie, but I'm coming back to cul-de-sacs later on. You wait, podcast audience.
Hold on. That's important to know, and that's good to know, and a great place to start. But, Lauren, this is the How Could You podcast, am I correct?
I mean, last time I checked.
Yeah. How Could You podcast was created for people that, have not seen a film, right, or had, that movie lover or something that you just... as a film
aficionado,
has not seen, right? Like, you have it, so...
And no judgment.
Right.
No judgment.
I mean, but there's going to be a little judgment here in a second. So, Lauren, who's your favorite actor?
Tom Hanks.
Lauren, who stars in The Burbs?
Tom Hanks.
Lauren Tocci, how could you not have seen the Burbs until you were an adult?
Okay, but I was like 18. All right, so here's the funny thing about, like, first off, you have to understand the people who are listening, and obviously I know you know this. My love for Tom Hanks runs deep, although I think that's just like kind of an American trait at this point. We all love Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks.
No, stop it, you. But truly and honestly, like, I associate this movie with Halloween. I always want to watch it at the start of the Halloween season, which for us starts in August. Because the first time we watched it with friends, and it was right at the start of Halloween. It's because I had not seen it. And I could not stop laughing during this movie. And this movie makes me laugh every single time I watch it. I could quote it, but I always find new little things that make me laugh, or moments that I kind of attach on to a little bit more. And of course, in watching it in preparation for this, I mean, I don't know that I've ever really, like, fully understood my deep hatred for cul-de-sacs, but I certainly did as I started watching this. And yeah, I'm going to call this a how could you, because it is... So, obviously, if you know anything about the trajectory of Tom Hanks' career, you know it started in a comedic space. He's a brilliant comedic actor. Even when he's in serious roles, I often think he has just, like, kind of that way and that charm of offering comedic moments, even in serious roles. But this, I would say, is his best comedic performance. Like, if for no other reason than one of my favorite moments in the film, I'm not going to talk about it now because I have a feeling we'll ask each other for, like, favorite scenes later on, but he's just so funny in this. And it's one of those things, the second I saw it, I went, I'm going to love this movie forever, and I'm going to want to watch it at least once a year.
And that makes me happy, because it is something, you know, I saw it as a kid. It was big in my family. Nice.
You said big.
Which is funny that you say this might be his best comedic performance. And then to bring up Big, which is arguably be...
Big's not a comedy.
Is it a horror movie?
It's body horror, man. That movie is not a comedy. Here's the problem, and there's one scene in Big, and you know this, I think. There's a scene where he has to go stay in the hotel the first night, and he curls up in a ball and he starts crying, and I can't watch it without getting really upset. So the problem is the rest of the movie, I'm just looking for the moments where he's like, okay, so I can never really appreciate it as a comedy.
I feel like Tom Hanks just makes you cry.
All the time. Yeah. Like happy tears, sad tears, angry tears. I don't know if I angry tears, but...
No, but I guess my point is, like, it's even though, you know... It's a late 80s. It's an 80s movie.
Oh, yeah.
So it's cool and nice to know that it still resonated. You know, because it's a very big curiosity I have about this film, which we'll get talking about it more, is how it resonates with an audience that has never seen it. Both young and old. Either or that sees it today. Because it's a different type of humor. And I don't think it's necessarily a type of humor that we see today, which, again, is something we'll get more into, but...
Well, and I think it's that quirky, you gotta kind of find the moments. I also think that this is one of those movies that, and we've talked about this before, the notion of, like, you know, when you're rewarded for multiple watches. And I think this one works well with that, because you start picking up on, like, who these... Like, once you have a sense of who these characters are and where the story is going, the lines get funnier every time you watch it. And the thing is like, you're right, this is a 100% 80s movie. It, to me, though, is much more in the tradition of, like, 80s kid adventure movies. It's just adults playing those parts. Like, it feels like The Goonies. It feels like Stand By Me. It's just adults in those roles instead.
Did you just call Stand By Me a kid's movie?
Yeah. Stand By Me is a kid's movie. It's a kid's movie.
It's a coming-age movie. It's not a kid's movie. It's an R-rated movie.
Is that movie rated R?
Yes. About 4 kids finding a dead body.
I recommend that movie all the time.
Written by Stephen King.
All the time to students. Is that really rated R? Oh my gosh. Okay, all right. Getting back on track here. But I think, here's why I think this movie actually would really work well if you showed it to, like, a modern audience right now who's, like, never seen it. I mean, obviously, kind of the novelty I would think of a modern audience seeing Tom Hanks in comedic roles would probably be there, because it's been a minute since he's done something, like, purely comedic. But I think this is it. The opening daylight portion, not the opening evening portion, like, when it cuts to daylight, in 10 seconds, it completely distills the minor irritations of suburban neighbor life that I think resonate no matter when you said it. Yeah. Like, of just those, like, tiny little things you get aggravated with, and, like, you get to see that happen very quickly and how these kind of like mild like feuds start amongst neighbors, and they're not like anything big and no one really does anything about it. It's just a matter of, so I think that always will resonate, the notion of like, you know, kind of being in your neighborhood, or, you know, and they even talk about like the Knapps, because so the Knapps are the family that lived in the house before the new neighbors, the Klopeks, move in. And the Knapps, they talk about, like, well, they never really got to know them. And I think that's something that kind of runs, like, throughout suburban neighborhoods. Like, how many connections are you supposed to make? Are you supposed to really know your neighbors, be at a distance? So I think you show this in any time, with exception of, like, some technology stuff. I don't think it feels that dissimilar from a modern story.
No, I don't disagree with you at all about that part of it. I think you're right. The basic aspects of the film, I do. The humor, to me, I feel might be a different story, but I agree with you. The basics of the outline of the story, 100%.
I'm actually going to argue with you on something here.
Okay.
I'm going to say the humor actually works even better now, because of things like The Office and Parks and Rec. Art's got a gun. Like, that deadpan of that, or like...
But see, this is what... I thought we'd get into this a little later, but I'm great to talk about it now. See, I believe, and I've had this conversation with you before, there's a tone to the humor of this film that we don't have anymore. Now, your case for The Office is an interesting one and may have a place here, but I'm talking about in film. Like, I think that this harkens back to Ghostbusters, Vacation. These films that are based around reality, and the humor is kind of written into it. And I feel like that's something that we lose in our comedies today. Like, now everything is so over the top. It becomes unrealistic. And I think, like, Ghostbusters is an unrealistic event. It's Ghost, and there's a...
Wait, what are you talking about? What do you mean unrealistic?
I mean, besides the Marshmallow Man walking, but you watch that film and it feels like you could be in that world.
Yeah, sure.
Where a lot of comedies today do not fall into that same. There's always these over top moments. Vacation, again, I think falls in that Ghostbusters, and I think this does too. Like, that's always when I talk about Christmas Vacation, I hate that scene with the sledding scene, because the sledding scene is so over the top and takes away from the rest of the film. It's exaggerating the realities. And I think that that's more what this does in this film.
I'm sorry, I have to pause.
Yeah?
Talking about exaggerating the realities with Ghostbusters, and I'm with you, my dude, but, like, at the same time, it's called Ghostbusters. Your National Lampoon's Vacation is well suited for this argument.
But, okay.
I do actually get what you're saying, though.
I use the two I hate ripping on the 2016 Ghostbusters. After Answer the Call, I think it's now called.
Was it called Afterlife at some point?
No, Afterlife is going to be the one that one day will come out.
No, it's never coming out.
So Ghostbusters Answer the Call, 2016's, like, everything was just so, like, zany. Like, everything was so crazy, where the characters in the original Ghostbusters, those guys felt real, where they weren't over the top. I agree with you. Yes, there was, again, a 50-foot Marshmallow Man walking down. So those moments were exaggerated beyond belief, but they made you believe it in the moment. It's kind of like the Klopek. I mean, like, not to give spoilers here, but the Klopeks are driving around with just skeletons in their trunk.
It's a femur. So here, I get what you're saying about the style of humor. And I do think it exists, but in film comedy, I think madcap, gross out, bodily harm comedy is kind of reigning supreme. So, like, almost like where people are getting injured in ways where you're like, they must be superhuman for them to have survived that. I do get what you're saying. The comedy that's, like, kind of based in reality. And I think that's actually something that this film does so well. Because that opening score should let you know that something, like, portentous is going to happen, like, within the context of this, like, cul-de-sac. But at the same time, everything that happens up until the point where, I mean, truly, like, when they blow up the house, like, everything else, it's like, it's kind of easily explained away. And, all right, the femur's not great, but, like, all right, so he's a doctor. And really, there could have been an ending of this where it's this, like, bah, what a misunderstanding. But it's not. They commit in. And that's something I really appreciate about this movie, that for most of it, it is really just about these neighbors trying to solve a mystery. And, you know, it speaks a lot to, like, kind of suburban life and, like, the idea of, like, the place and, you know, the fact that, you know, so Carrie Fisher is in this and she's fabulous as always, and she's trying to get Ray to go away and go up to the lake house. The idea of, like, you don't want to just stay here. You know, this is before the term staycation. And the fact that then, like, everything that happens after it is just so bred of, like, boredom and then, like, needing to find intrigue and Ray so not wanting... Like, I love how you have essentially, like, Ricky talks about, like, oh, Ray, he's the... Or Mr. Peterson, he's the skeptic. Like... Yeah. There's, like, such a commitment to everything being pretty normal and everything that happens to them being completely, like, their imaginations run amok. And I think that's why this movie works so well.
It's
because
a little comedic Rear Window, right?
Oh, yeah, complete. Well, and actually, it's interesting. So, production of this film is kind of fun because you have... So, Tom Hanks is coming off of Big. He was hesitant to do this movie. You have Joe Dante coming off of Gremlins. You know, so you have... Or is a little bit.
It's a little
bit of gap
yeah.
between this and Gremlins.
It's actually closer to Gremlins 2.
Oh my gosh, that would be right. Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting, you know, how this movie comes together. And one of the original, like, concepts for this, that it was going to be really referential to Rear Window. Not meaning to be, like, a mock on Rear Window, but the idea of, like, kind of invoking those themes, which, you know, worked so well with, like, so many of the parallels between Tom Hanks and, like, Jimmy Stewart, and, you know, and their acting, their presence, and their reputation. But it ends up, they kind of abandoned that. In fact, there's only one scene in the film that still is referential to Rear Window, and it's the one time you see Ray looking out his window into the Klopek's backyard. That is the only time they decided just to abandon it and go, you know, go kind of in a different direction. And one of the things they really committed to was the idea that this was only going to take place in the neighborhood, because there was a version of this where they were going to show other parts of the town.
Oh, interesting.
And Joe Dante was kind of like, no, we're going to shoot this.
Yeah, because cul-de-sacs are terrifying.
Cul-de-sacs are terrifying. They really are. But he wanted that claustrophobic, like, they're kind of stuck there. And, you know, you even have references too, like, you know, Carrie Fisher saying, like, let's go to the lake house. You have Art saying, like, do you want to go down to the sandwich shop? And, like, but none of that ever happens, because they realized, like, there was something so much better in the tension of it if they never left the neighborhood, and it's just them constantly processing these things that are going on. That's why you never see any of the characters outside of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, I like it. I think it works. I mean, I think that decision was by far the best decision they could have made, because I agree, the for lack of a better word, the claustrophobic feel, the closed-in feel is important to the film.
Well, and especially once we get the reveal of the fact that there was actually something going on. I always felt like, so something that struck me this time is very early in the film, Ray's son says to him, I saw them burying stuff in the backyard, and I don't know why. This is the first time it occurred to me. I'm like, oh my God, that kid saw them burying bodies in the backyard, and it's just such a throwaway thing that he says at the beginning. And I'm like, oh, that poor kid and that trauma of later on.
So this movie comes out 1989, like we talked about. It's a PG film, which I think still would hold up as a PG film. Sure. I see no reason it's not. It's a February release, which I found interesting completely.
Because it doesn't feel appropriate.
It doesn't, because I agree with you. I feel it as a summer film. It's a nice little summer film. You find it as a Halloween film, which is great because we start, like you said, we start celebrating Halloween in August, so usually we'll watch it in August. We moved it up a little this year. But do you know it came out February 17th, 1989? Do you know what film also came out February 17th, 1989?
No, I don't.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
No, these movies are from different time periods. Shut up.
Do you imagine that somebody could go, those are the two films you had the choice of that weekend? It's fantastic.
I'm just, like, tweaking out here, though, because to me, those films don't seem like they should have come out the same year remotely. Obviously, I know that to be true. But, like, also, you're right. Can you imagine going, like, oh, yeah, no, I'm gonna catch two movies. I'm gonna see The Burbs. I'm gonna see Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Yeah. Like, wild.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. This movie, though, we have to be honest, right? Like, we love it. Our families love it. Our friends love it.
Yeah.
It's not it's more of a cult classic It's not well received. Rotten Tomato, it only had a 53% on the critic score.
First off, I hate Rotten Tomatoes.
I know you do.
So why are you doing this?
I know you do. I will say what's interesting, though, is the audience score then goes up to 71%, which is very obvious why. It is not a critic film. I mean, you watch it once, you know that it's going to get panned by most critics.
Well, and Roger Ebert in his original review, so, and obviously you're alluding to this, so I mean, it was critically panned, but it was successful. And that's how it becomes a cult classic, or it was moderately successful. It wasn't as damned in the box office numbers as it was by the critic reviews.
No.
And Roger Ebert said in his original review, and I thought, this is just the shadiest of shade. The Burbs tries to position itself somewhere between Beetlejuice and The Twilight Zone, but it lacks the dementia of the first and the wicked intelligence of the second, and turns instead into a long, shaggy dog story. Is that not so mean? But I was also like, well, Ebert, are you not living in the Burbs? Because this is clearly why this movie doesn't speak to you.
Right.
He is so critical. He gives it a 2.
Wow. I mean, Ebert, he's so notorious for that. Like,
yeah, when he hates it deep. But it's surprising to me, so we talk about this as a cult classic, and I always think of cult classic
he does like some bad stuff.
Yes, he does. But we talk about cult classics, we tend to think of those as really niche, but I feel like this should have mass appeal. If for no other reason then, and I know this is your favorite character, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts on, I know Rumsfield's your favorite character in this movie, right? I am right.
He's fantastic.
He's just the best. So he's the militant, I don't want to call him militant, but he's a retired military person that lives at he's next door to Walter? No, not Walter.
He's next to Ricky.
He's next to Ricky. Do you know whose Ricky's house is?
I think it's the Seavers, right?
No, it is not.
Oh.
Okay, so
darn it.
The Peterson...
I knew Ray's house is.
Who's Ray's house?
Ray's is Beaver Cleavers.
Yes, it is. So Ray Peterson's home is the Leave It to Beaver house. Ricky Butler's house is the Munsters house.
Oh, the Munsters. Nice. Okay,
so
cool.
Here's what happened. So this was shot on Universal City because the Seaver house is on the Warner Brothers lot. This was shot on Universal City. Do you know what's crazy? You and I saw this on the Universal Studios tour. I don't remember seeing it, but I know we went by that section because when you take the Universal Studios tour, they highlight that was the filming location for The Desperate Housewives.
Oh, yeah.
They don't talk about that it was the Burbs. So here's what they had to do.
That's right. You know what? And I got confused with the two tours.
Because Pretty Little Liars was the neighborhood that's on the Warner Brothers lot. I did the same thing because when I was reading this, I was like, no, Desperate Housewives was on the Warner Brothers lot. No, it's the reverse. So what they had to do, because they wanted to film on the Universal Studios lot, is they had to take the Munsters house and move it to make a cul-de-sac that they could film on. But this was further complicated by the fact, and I know you'll appreciate this because you've experienced it, there are times in the film that you very faintly can hear someone yelling, "Help." Do you know why?
No.
Because the Jaws ride was behind the set of houses. And when
my God, that's amazing.
When the tour would come through, every once in a while, you could hear it. And Joe Dante kept it in because he felt like it fit with kind of just the ambient noises you would hear in a neighborhood. And so kept it in. And I actually, because I saw that as an IMDb fact, and I went, no, that's too good to be true. And I had to verify it across a few different sources just to make sure. But yeah, I
love that. I also find it really funny that they had to move the Munsters house to make Ricky's house, but didn't use the Munsters house for the Klopek's house.
Oh my God, that did not even occur to me. Do you know what the funny thing is, too, about that? An additional layer. So if you look at Ricky's house, the only way you can really tell it's the Munsters house is if you pay close attention to the porch sequences when he's, setting up with his friends to, watch this,
when he's just randomly painting it red, this bright red, fire engine red color.
Ricky Butler is the unsung hero of this movie.
Yeah.
He is he is hilarious because he's all of us just like watching this like, you know, whole entire weird scenario unfold. I love how he like tries to give people like a play-by-play of like what is going on, like as though he's watching theater happen in front of him. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because that's the line that he uses the when he's calling everybody over to his house. He's like, "It's gonna be live tonight." I love that line. Yes,
exactly.
It's so good.
Well, and you cannot help yourself every time we order pizza.
Yes.
When it arrives, you yell,
"The pizza dude!"
Yeah.
Yes.
Like every time.
You got to. I did want to touch base. We were talking about, you said before about it not doing well at the box office.
Yeah.
And I thought the box office numbers were kind of interesting.
Well, it's like mediocre.
Well, it was interesting to me because, I mean, we did live in a different time. Like, and especially, I don't even know now what we count as box office numbers. But let's just say we talk about this pre-pandemic box office. Most films get 1, maybe 2 weeks at top, right? Like, so there's not a lot of longevity anymore. But I just thought it was interesting. So this came out, and I was looking at the February numbers. So it pulled in $18 million in February.
Nothing to sneeze
that it came
at.
out. No, not at all, considering it came out February 17th. So you're only talking a couple of weeks. It actually beat out Bill and Ted's by a lot.
Oh, wow.
In that first month. But this is the interesting part. So Bill and Ted's, though, Scott starts to go up.
Yeah.
So word of mouth of that, obviously,
Sure.
where the Burbs starts to sink. Now, the top movie that month, though, was Rain Man, which came out in December. So, if it makes it, you know, kind of interesting, Beaches was number 3 that month, which had also come out, I believe, in December, yes. So, and then you go over into March, and that's when, all of a sudden, Bill and Ted surpasses the Burbs in gross. Which I thought was interesting. And then you start having Lean on Me come out, which Rain Man still was in number 2. So that just shows the juggernaut that Rain Man was.
I'm going to be very honest with you. You are blowing my mind with some of this, because if you had said to me to situate these movies in order of which they were released, I would have thought a few years gaps in between. I would have assumed, and this is the bias of, I think movies sometimes came out when I first saw them, because, like, I watched Beaches probably when I want to say, like, 7 or 8 years old. Traumatizing movie. Traumatizing. A movie that's designed to make you cry. But I would have never situated all of those movies that close together. And particularly that they would have been, like, essentially, like, competing against each other at the box office. Like, just think about that list of Bill and Ted and Rain Man and Beaches and the Burbs. Like, it doesn't sound like these things should go together in a season.
I thought it was, and then I just have, this has nothing to do with the Burbs, other than I went even farther out to April, and you know that I recently have gone off about the 1999 being one of the best years of film of all time.
Yeah.
There might be something about 1989, because I just want to read you the top 15. I'm not going to read you the whole top 15, but let me give you some of the top 15 of April's box office gross of 1989. You had Dangerous Liaisons.
Oh, all right.
Mississippi Burning.
Oh, damn.
Lean on Me. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Fletch Lives. Say Anything. Rain Man. Pet Sematary. And Major League.
Dude, that's a year.
And then also, your and my dad's favorite film, Dead Calm.
Oh my god. Okay, can I have 15 minutes to talk about Dead Calm?
I'll give you 30 seconds.
It's so good. Please watch it. It is one of the most, like, tense things. Your dad, I remember I came over to your house and the movie had, like, just started, and your dad was like, you need to watch this. And we, like, sat down, and I did not move for, like, however long the movie is, like an hour and a half. It is the most tense. Oh my gosh, Dead Calm. Watch Dead Calm.
It's got your friend Billy Zane in it.
He is not your friend in that movie.
And was it Nicole Kidman?
Nicole
right?
Kidman.
Do we know who the third is? I can't remember. There's
it's
another woman in that. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's escaping me right now, but oh gosh, it is so tense.
I just remember you and my dad just standing watching this movie for 2 hours.
That's the thing. That's right. We 100% didn't sit down. You were so correct. I remember like standing in the corner of the living room, just being like so enraptured. I couldn't move my body because it was so tense. Oh my gosh.
But
incredible.
I just thought that was an interesting year, and I'd love to maybe go back at some point and look at more what came out that year, because that's just April too, so very interesting.
Yeah, for sure. There may be a case made for that, and maybe a nice like pairing with the 1999 films. So I'll ask you with this film, do you have a favorite scene in the movie? Like a Oh man, either like a line or a scene that you kind of like point to as one of your favorites in the film.
Well, yes, I do, but it could change all the time because it's like you said, this is what makes this movie hold up and why it's got such a cult classic persona, because it's just so quotable.
Yes.
Like, I mean, every couple minutes, and it's not even the big line, they're small lines. Like
about a 9 on the tension scale there, Rube.
Yeah, that is one of the best lines ever. I mean, and it's in the delivery. I mean, Bruce Dern in that scene alone is like, he owns that scene. Like,
just a
in
damn
the house,
treasure.
when he's meeting all of them and just kind of interrogating them in his own way. Bruce Dern to me is crazy because he is one of the most well-respected, well-renowned actors of, all time. To me, he's always Rumsfield.
Oh, yeah! And I know he has much more iconic roles, but like, no, you're Rumsfield.
Like, when he got nominated for Nebraska, I was like, oh, awesome!
The guy from the Burbs.
The guy from the Burbs. No, he's so good at it, and there's, like you said, there's just all these such little lines. I love Art at one point. He's just like, we gotta go down and get holy water, and my cousin's a priest, and he'd get us a deal. Like, it's just these little lines that just add up throughout the movie, and that's kind of like, I could talk about the big scenes, but probably mine is this one of the, not a small scene, but I love when Ray is finally kind of trying to settle down. Carrie Fisher, she's like, no, he's not going out, and Art and Rumsfeld come over.
Yes.
And they want him to come out, and they're just acting like two little kids, like, come on, let him come out. And then they're just kicking the ground when he won't come out.
They're, like, looking down at their feet, and she's like, I think I've made myself clear.
Yeah. And you were right, Carrie Fisher is so good in this, because she plays the straight man here, right? Like, yeah. But she does it perfectly. I mean, I forget it's Carrie Fisher in this movie almost all the time.
Oh, completely.
I mean, I know it's a little more Carrie Fisher, like Sleepless in Seattle.
Yeah.
To tell you, but like, she's just so good in it, and she plays so well off of Tom Hanks in it.
Yeah, and I think I love that moment too, because I think it's a good moment for Carrie Fisher's character to shine, because it's like you completely understand why she's kind of done with all of this, because kind of exactly what she's predicted was going to happen if they didn't go up to the lake house is exactly what's going on. Like, he's going kind of like nuts. Now, granted, we know that how he ends up feeling is completely legitimate. But like, you totally get where she's coming from in that space and why she's trying to put an end to this. You get the sense that she totally hates Art, and I'm completely with her because Art is so damn annoying. Like, I hate his character so much.
When he comes over for breakfast, oh my gosh, just keeps going back and forth.
He gets out the ribs.
He gets out the ribs and a pineapple?
Yes.
Like a whole pineapple.
What are you doing? And there's like, and I think that's the great thing about this. It's all those like tiny things that you go back and you notice later on, like, that the actors did, and some of this was improv, which was in credit or detriment to the fact that so there was the writer's strike of 1988, so there were aspects of that they were kind of making up as they go, which works really well. Like for example, like Rumsfeld, when he rips the wallpaper, that was Bruce Dern who did that.
Really?
Yeah, and there's like all these other like little moments that they like purportedly improv'd like as they were doing this, but like I think that's the great thing about the Carrie Fisher character is that you completely understand where she's coming from, and it also just like works really well, I think, to balance out kind of a lot of the insanity of like what the three of them are doing. So I love that you picked that scene. That's such a great scene, and it's so easy to pass off.
Yeah. But I gotta know, what's yours?
Oh, you know what mine is.
What?
It's take me to the hospital. I've been blown up. Take me to the hospital. I'm sick. I love nothing more than him throwing the gurney in the back of the ambulance, and I literally die every time that moment happens because it's just so hilarious. Because, one, I mean, he obviously shouldn't have survived what he just went through and endured. And two, it's like, it's before the payoff of knowing that there is really something sinister going on. It's before the great, hey, Pinocchio, where are you going? Like, and it's just, there's all this chaos happening, and he's so resigned to the fact he's going to go to jail. He is so, like, haggard at this point and just completely, like, broken by what has just happened, and just him throw it, like, it really starts when he runs after Art, like, to kill Art. And he just that line alone is just...
That's the thing you were talking about earlier with Hanks. I mean, he's such a he's got such a body comedy to him.
Yes,
that people
totally
don't
physical.
Physical comedy, excuse me, I don't know. Body
comedy.
I'm calling it. Yeah.
Body comedy.
Physical comedy to him that people forget. Like, and just his whole arm movements and the exaggeration is so good in that scene. And I love that everybody's just standing around. Nobody reacts to him during that.
They just let it happen, and I feel like that's so genuine, because if you just saw this guy who literally has just been blown up and then just throwing a gurney in the back of the... Oh my gosh. You would just stand there. What else are you to do in that moment? And the fact Carrie Fisher's like, I'll just follow in my car. Like, it's just so great.
I give props. Tom Hanks' best acting to me is when he's coming out of the house and he just somehow slides down the 4 stairs. I'm like, how does he do that? That's just perfect.
It's like his legs are not attached. Yeah. It's just, and that whole ending sequence is so great because you get this really, like, sinister payoff. And, like, one of the things I really like about this movie is, like, this is a really specific genre. I love when comedy and horror collide, and I'm not talking about, like, your scary movie parodies. I'm talking about, like, something where there's a little something, like, off going on. To me, it always feels, like, very referential to the fact that, like, you know, I grew up, like, loving, like, Are You Afraid of the Dark and, like, Tales from the Crypt. So, like, I love, like, comedy and horror when they kind of meet in this, like, perfect way. I think Clue works very well for this, too.
Yeah.
Now, that's a mystery.
But that's actually a really good comparison. Yeah.
And I grew up loving that movie, and I think that's probably why I was so apt to love The Burbs, because it's a very similar sense of humor.
Yeah.
And also, it mixes, like, things that almost could, like, read a little scary, but then they don't. And, like, you know, because, like, one of the things at the ending sequence, so originally, how it was written, it was actually supposed to be dead cheerleaders in the trunk.
Oh, jeez.
Right? So glad they made that adjustment, because it was so much darker that way. Like, but it's still, like, they're still killing people.
We're
but
like, the bones and skulls, no big deal.
They could be cheerleaders. I don't know.
Right.
But it's, like, it's just, I don't know. What I love about this movie is the fact that it commits to this idea that something really sinister was happening. But it does it in a way in which you don't lose the humor in it. It just, and it's a really interesting balance to strike. And I think that's why I get so mad at, like, reading, like, people who have been critical of this movie at the time. Now, since then, no, it's much beloved. But, like, the original reviews, and I hate saying this, but I almost want to just, I hate this phrase. Like, you just didn't get it. Like, you didn't get what...
Oh, she said it.
I hate it.
She said it.
I hate saying that. I really, because I hate when people say that about, like, something, like, artistic, because I always feel like that leans on gatekeeping, and I never really like that. But I feel like with this movie, I'm like, it's just that you didn't understand what made it really interesting.
I think you're correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not saying it in a negative way of you didn't get it. It's just, it's a type of humor that's going to hit with you. You're going to get that type of humor as in, that's your sense of humor, right? Like, it's not necessarily like you didn't get it because, you know, the work is above you by any means.
No. I mean it more in there, because there's an element of this, I think you have to kind of be okay with the suburbs getting mocked for all of the things that you can make fun of about living in a suburban community. Like, all of the little nuances and irritations and idiosyncrasies of living in a suburban neighborhood. I also think you have to have a little bit of gallows humor, because there are aspects of this that are really dark and strange because they full well know by the end that the Knapp family was actually killed.
Right.
And that they stole the house from them. So you have to kind of be okay with that. And so I think that's I don't think it's a niche thing, but I think it's got it's a very specific type of sense of humor that I think is going to really enjoy this. Although I do think it can read broad, too. And I know that sounds like a contradiction, because it 100% is. I'm 100% contradicting myself. But I think maybe that's why it wasn't understood. But I think it's like a lot of things that you...
I had the same thought you did.
Oh,
like,
you
that
did?
was
Okay.
me, too. I thought the same thing was like, yeah, if you don't like it, you didn't get it. But I don't think it's necessarily as negative or combative, or as you put it, gatekeeping as it sounds by any means.
No, and honestly, like, I'm precious about this movie. I love Tom Hanks. I love the moments in this. It makes me laugh. It's a good comfort movie in that way. And also...
Good comfort movie. That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah.
It really, really is.
Well,
because you can put it on at any time. It hits all the notes. Like, yeah, completely. That's a great way to describe it.
there's just like 1,000 things. Like, I mean, we could have spent an hour just quoting this movie, you know, green sky at morning, neighbor take warning, or like... Here you go, Sonny, a little something for the old sweet tooth. Like, there's just like 1,000 lines in this movie that are worthy to be quoted.
Oh, yeah. And everybody's so good. Everybody plays their character exactly as you would want them to. Like, they all have a role to play, which sounds so obvious, but it doesn't always gel. You have an ensemble cast, and they all play... just these, because we've barely talked about Feldman, but I mean, Feldman, like you said, he's the eyes of the audience, right? Like,
yeah.
But he's such a fun character. And you got Corey Feldman coming off of Dream a Little Dream.
Yeah.
Which was just my moment to drop a little dream reference in here.
Do you know he came from the set of Dream a Little Dream? He had flown in, and he still was, like, dressed like his character from Dream a Little Dream, and Joe Dante saw him and said, that's exactly what we're looking for. He barely had to audition for this.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Love it. Yes. That's because Dream a Little Dream is a great movie.
It is a really great movie.
Soundtrack, awesome.
Yes, you were 100% right. But I
bought the soundtrack in New York City at a Virgin Meghan store. I got mocked mercifully about it by my sister and my friend so bad.
Aww.
It was cool.
We can talk about that too,
Not
Ryan.
a lot of people go into the Virgin Meghan store and buy Dream a Little Dream.
You know what? But I bet you made some cashier's day because they had that story to tell when they went home. You'll never guess what this fool...
I'm pretty sure the cashier probably gave me the Jack Black from High Fidelity.
Oh, is she in a coma?
Yeah.
But I think, too, like, what makes this film work so well is in a neighborhood, you know a Ray, you know a Rumsfeld, you know an Art, you know a Ricky. Like, it very much... I'm pretty sure my dad was the Rumsfeld of our neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, he was.
So with that, although I cannot imagine a reality where anyone else would play these parts, because you pointed out so beautifully how incredible this ensemble cast works. How the beats of this movie, I think, are really reliant on the people in those roles, bringing these characters to life, making them phenomenally relatable. So that way, when the fantastical elements happen, we totally are in for it. And they almost feel so grounded in reality, we're not shocked that the Klopeks have skulls, potentially of cheerleaders, in their trunk. So I can't even imagine this.
House of 1,000 Corpses.
Oh my god, this is the basis for House of 1,000 Corpses. Ryan Tocci, do you have a recasting for this?
Recasters, negotiators.
Oh, is that a thing?
I'm trying to make that a thing. No? Okay, yes, I do.
Please, anyone else come up with a different jingle for our recasting. We got Tossi's takes. Come up with a jingle for recasting so I never have to hear him do that.
I got it, okay?
No, you don't.
All right, let me state, because, again, we have barely done this on season 2, so if you're new to the show, we sometimes try to recast. Let me make this clear. No one should ever remake these films.
No, don't do it.
But putting me to the fire, giving me a full budget, sky's the limit. I got your cast here.
Oh, God.
Ricky, Finn Wolfhard. I mean, who else are you going to put there? I mean...
Because anything you're remaking that starred Corey Feldman should automatically have Finn Wolfhard.
Basically, yeah.
Yes, 100%.
Right. Rumsfeld, Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I actually want to point something out to you. I haven't said... You know how old the difference of age, if we put Samuel L. Jackson in that part? He would be 20 years older than Bruce Dern was when he played.
Shut the front door. Bruce Dern
was 51 when he played in The Burbs.
Okay, first off, two things that I'm having a really hard time with. One, that Bruce Dern was 51 in The Burbs because he got to a certain age and then just stopped aging. And two, that Samuel L. Jackson's 71 years old. Continue. You've blown my mind already.
Bonnie, I'm going to say Halle Berry.
Okay, right on. Yeah.
Carol, Michelle Williams.
Oh, I see that.
Yes.
I see where this is going.
Do you want Art or Ray next?
No, Art, please.
Art, an actor that I think is an up-and-comer and deserves some more credit. Ben Schwartz.
Oh my gosh. It's happening again. This is why we stopped doing recasting for a while.
It might be, actually. Tell me, though, he wouldn't be good at that part.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. 100%.
And then you pair him with Ray, my Ray.
Are you dumb selling fake drugs to sophomores? Because if you are, I'm in.
Ray, Chris Evans.
Hello, neighbor.
I think he could be really good at that.
Wait, hold on. Because I think there was a natural place I thought this was going. I assumed you were going to pick Bill Hader for Ray.
No. Bill Hader's off the list.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
We've broken up.
Okay. All right.
I don't want to talk about it.
All right. For another episode, maybe. Do you have any other recastings?
Oh, I got the Klopeks.
Oh my god, you do recast the Klopeks.
I did.
All right, hit me.
All right. So, Hans, I have Eller Coltrane, who was the kid from Boyhood.
Yep. Yeah. I see that.
I also thought Ezra Miller might work there. He's getting a little older than...
I think Ezra Miller could still do that.
Courtney Gaines, though. Courtney Gaines has such a look, such a personality to him that he's Outlander.
Oh, we've got your woman.
Courtney Gaines from
Children of
the Corn, and also Can't Buy Me Love. Great character in Can't Buy Me Love.
She is really good in Can't Buy Me Love.
Heartbreaking and great character. I have Reuben Klopek, David Bradley.
David Bradley
from Harry Potter.
Oh my gosh! Oh, yeah.
Doesn't have to do much.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Klopek, Mark Hamill.
Yes! Don't remake this movie, but 100% make this movie with this cast.
I appreciate that you gave me all the money.
That you would need.
Yes.
The considerable ducats.
So, okay, that's my recasting. I'm going to guess you don't have a recast.
No, I would never demean myself to make a recasting of this film.
But I do have a kind of quick fire couple questions for you here.
Go for it.
Or an hourglass quick fire. How about that?
What's an hourglass? Is that like Days of Our Lives? Duel?
Duel.
These are the days of our lives. Continue.
Nice little Friends reference there. I appreciate that. Okay, so question number 1. Is their name Klopek or Klopek? Because they call them the Klopeks the entire film.
Yeah.
But then the police call them Klopek.
Klopek. Or is there something really funny about this is a family that they've been stalking and bothering, and they have no idea how to actually pronounce their last name? All right, actually, I want to think of it as it's Klopek.
Or nobody really knows.
Or nobody knows. Nobody knows. I love that.
Number 2. Why was the house so dilapidated? If I'm understanding, they only lived there for like a month, and the Naps were there when they got there.
So here's my feeling. If there isn't a house that's that house on the block, you are that house.
Mm-hmm.
That's my feeling. Because I think it's the notion of, like, I don't think you're supposed to think the Naps lived there very long, so maybe the Naps were taking it as, like, a fixer-upper, but never really got around to... Well, I mean, because they get killed.
Oh, okay.
And all their stuff is still in the house.
Right. Sorry, I dropped a pen. Then that brings me to my next question. Is there a supernatural element to this film? Because in the first scene, Ray goes to walk over, and the entire wind starts to blow him back.
All right, so I've actually never thought about that, but I do get what you're saying, because there's something really unrealistic about that happening, especially considering how grounded the rest of it is. So I think you can think about this one of two ways. Either a nightmare, because there's that other nightmare sequence in the film with the chainsaw and the Satanist cult and the sacrifice. Satan is my pal, Satan is good. Oh God, I really shouldn't have said that into the microphone. I don't feel good about that. It's a quote from the movie. But... oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way. That's a really interesting question. I'm going to say it's either a nightmare...
This is, by the way, it's hourglass quick fire.
Yes, as in it takes me an hour to answer one question. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it's him dramatizing things in his mind, but it's not.
I tend to agree with you.
Yeah.
Do you like dramatic Hanks or comedy Hanks better?
Dramedy Hanks?
Dramedy. All right.
That's unfair. Dramatic Hanks.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you think he can still do the comedy?
Yes, hell yeah. And I'm waiting for it, and I'm here for it.
He has one of the worst comedies of all time, just for the record.
The Lady Killers?
The Lady Killers.
A movie that you quote weirdly an odd amount of time.
You want me to tell that story?
Nope.
Do you think Rumsfield was actually in the military or just obsessed with the military?
Well, if my dad is the Rumsfeld on the block, then he was not in the military but obsessed. No, I think you're supposed to think he was actually in the military.
There's just a couple of moments that I go, oh, but then there's other things.
Yeah.
So I tend to agree.
Because the interrogation sequence in the Klopek or Klopek house is evidence enough.
What was Dr. Klopek's end game to get away? He stole the ambulance and then was going to kill Ray. How was he trying to get away with that?
Well, here's the thing. He has killed what we can assume is probably at least 25 to 50 people. I'm sure he had a way of figuring this out. The only thing is...
He got outsmarted by Art and Ray.
All right, that's fair. Hey, in the Burbs, we're just not going to take it anymore. But here's the thing. I do think you're supposed to think that... Well, because it's really weird. Nobody reacts to the erratic driving of the ambulance, which is strange. Like, nobody's, like, really paying much attention to it. I think you're supposed to think he would have figured out a way around it. But, yeah, it is a weird thing. He didn't really have a plan.
Yeah. I just didn't understand having Hans to steal the ambulance.
Yeah.
Do you think Ricky ever actually painted the house?
No.
His parents were supposed to come home on Thursday.
Because his parents came home and went, why are you painting our house bright red? This is so weird.
Do you know the 4 programs on the TV that bookended the dream sequence that Ray was watching?
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
That was what he woke up to, yes.
Jeopardy? No, that's right, they watched
Jeopardy.
early.
There were 3, I'll give you that, there were 3 horror films that he watched before he fell asleep.
Oh, Shenanigans. I can't remember, and I literally thought to myself I needed to remember this. What are they?
So it's Exorcist,
yeah,
Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and Race with the Devil, which was a Peter Fonda 1975 film. And then finally, do you think that this could be remade as a just straight up horror movie or drama?
Yes.
Or not drama, but you know what I mean, thriller horror movie.
Yeah, 100% it could. I think it would work really well. You know who I'd love to see take a stab at this, no pun intended? Jordan Peele.
Oh, yeah.
Like, a version of this that's a lot darker. I think you could, and when I mean darker, that you really lean into the sinister element of it. So I think it could. I love so much the mixture of the comedy with the kind of sinister aspects of this.
I like it.
Shut up. We just recently watched Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and if you've ever seen that movie, I was about to say a line that you will know if you know the movie. But I like that mixture, but I could 100% see this being something a lot more sinister and like a dark comedy in the hands of Jordan Peele.
You know, it's good. I like it. All right. I agree with you. I think this movie, we have to give so much credit to Joe Dante because it's a nice compliment really with Gremlins, which we've talked about so much here, because there's a great scene with Art and he's telling the story about Skip and the murder in the town.
Yeah.
That's very, to me, Phoebe Cates telling the story about her dad on Christmas, right? Like, it's not quite as dark as that.
It's less traumatizing.
But it's there, and that's what I think he does just a good job with. And then, obviously, we didn't even talk today too much about the score, which is
Jerry Goldsmith. Yeah.
So good. I mean, he's done, Hoosiers, Rudy, he's an icon.
Gremlins.
Well, yes, yeah. So, he just does a really nice balance of finding the comedy and the horror and kind of the old-fashioned horror, to make it into it just does he just does an excellent job with it. I really think amplifies the film as well.
No, I 100% agree with you. There's the score that sets that tone and I think gives you the space to understand things when they're getting a little bit more dangerous and scary and then when they're lighthearted again. And I feel like you need those auditory clues in something like this, particularly where the tone is such a mixture of things. And I agree. I love that you point out that scene with Art because it is that story itself could be its own movie.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Make a Skip movie?
Yeah,
That'd
make a
really
Skip movie that, links up with the Burbs. That would be kind of cool and interesting.
There's other little things that Dante does in his film that I just think are really quite ingenious, and they're small. There's these small moments. Like, the garbage never leaves.
Yes!
When they throw the garbage on, it's always there, which I think is terrific. I love the comedic aspect of Art's outline in the shed when they're getting ready to go over, right? Like, you're getting these serious moments, but then he does a nice job of just plopping in a nice comedic moment.
Well, and I like how, you have Ray's son is, like, involved in the hijinks, but only, like, kind of at arm's length until it gets, like, super dangerous. I love all of the how awkward the scene inside the Klopek's house is, like, with the sardines and the pretzels and, like...
Oh, my God. Tom Hanks is so good in that.
Oh, God. It's, like, so gross. And, like...
He starts sneezing.
And, yeah. It's, like, dust allergies. Yeah. Like, but, like, and also, too, like, just kind of the interaction of, like, you can tell, like... essentially you have, like, Carrie Fisher's trying to do the right thing and be, like, neighborly, but you can see how immediately uncomfortable she is, but she's trying to hide it. It just works so nicely. And then, you have all this, like, really demented art around the house, so, like, props to set decoration, having those scenes where it's, like, the painting is supposed to be, like, surgery from the perspective of the patient, which is, like, so demented and horrifying. But I think you're right. It's all these little things that Joe Dante does, like, throughout the film to... just kind of remind us of, like, kind of the danger that's there, but also keeping the danger appropriate at bay so it gets to still feel like a comedy. Like, it's just such a good movie. Can't say enough about it. We didn't even talk
about the garbage scene, which is so classic.
Oh my God.
I've never seen that. I've never seen a neighbor drive down and beat the hell out of
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, yeah, right. That scene's so great because it's just, like, how they talk about it, and it's, like, you just see Ray not really wanting to give in to kind of the fear of this, but, like, at some point having to know, like, something's really not right here. Really fun thing. Do you know who Queenie the dog is?
No.
It's Precious from Silence of the Lambs.
That's awesome.
It's the same dog.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Which bookend
Might
that
be the biggest
story.
icon in that film.
Although I like to think of some connected universe where somehow, like, Buffalo Bill is, like, related to him. Like, that's just, like, and that's where Queenie goes at the end.
Yeah, I mean, overall, right? Like, this is just, you have to see it. It's just a fun movie. Family can watch it. You by yourself at night just want a good film. Like, it's just, like you said earlier, it's a comfort film.
Yeah.
So many good lines throughout, like, absolutely.
Can't say enough about this movie. So if you're not following us already on social media, you can follow us at How Could You Podcast on Instagram, How Could You Pod on Twitter. You can always send suggestions to howcouldyoupodcast@gmail.com. If you have a chance in whatever app you're using to listen to this podcast, please leave us a review. It really helps our visibility. And, next week we come back, or in 2 weeks we come back with another gap in film knowledge. I'm not saying what it is, but check us out on Instagram. You'll get some sneak previews.
I'll grab the cannoli. Until next time, enjoy the Odyssey.